Welcome back to our 32 for 32 NFL preview series. This is the Goal Line Stand, and we are talking LA Rams football. And as you can see by the graphic here at the top of the screen, I went old school when putting this graphics package together because I got to tell you, bad job on the new graphics with the new identity and the colors are fine, but what the hell did the Rams do uniform wise? Like, what? It was so simple. Simple. All you had to do was go back to the old look, the classic look, tweak it a little bit. Like the horn, I don't mind. I don't love it, but
so you don't mind the helmet.
I don't mind the helmet. The color's too blue. It matches. I don't like it.
Yeah.
To me, it was just, this was a super simple thing, and they screwed it up.
Yeah, it's I don't like the tequila sunrise effect on the numbers.
No.
That is not good. I also, what are they officially calling that? It's not white,
it's
though.
Bone. They're calling it bone.
Yeah, it looks bad because it just looks like a practice uniform.
It looks like, so watching the scrimmage, they had a scrimmage at the new stadium, which we're also going to get to. It looks unwashed.
Yes, it looks like when you would hand in the jerseys and it'd all just like kind of get faded and blended
it looks unwashed. It all looks like almost there's a tint of gray to it.
Yeah, and so I am anti-piping.
Correct.
I think there's too much piping going on in NFL uniforms. If there's a uniform that would need some piping, it's this bone jersey. Maybe even like a blue down the side, something to
break it up a little bit.
It's got it looks like a glorified. This looks like they look like the scout team.
Yeah.
They look like the LA Rams scout team, the Los Angeles scout team.
That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
I know you're going into a new building and you want to change the look, because the old look when they went to the gold, the Vegas gold, I think was the actual color, was awful. And again, change it up a little bit. The horn on the helmet, I get it, it's different, but if that was going to be one of your slight tweaks, so be it. But the other uniform, the throwback, we'll call it, the Eric Dickerson era, was just so classic. Classic.
I never understood. I was happy when they went to the throwback home jersey.
Yeah.
But why didn't they just take the throwback away jersey?
I don't think they were allowed to. That comes back to all this nonsense with the NFL rules and all that stuff.
But you're not switching helmets. You would be if you would maintain the helmet from the throwback.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
It was so dumb, and I actually like the away uniform too.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The old away uniform.
Watching footage of the new stadium, I know that it has a roof on it, and it's going to be transparent. But there's always something about watching a game in Los Angeles, whether it was the Rams or the Raiders from back in the day, or even like a Dodger game during daytime. There's something different about the sunlight and the way it hits the field and the team, and it just looked very meh. It's there. It's carbon.
You don't like the stadium?
I don't like the stadium.
I was impressed by it. I really like the ribbon of the video board, both where you have it on the outside and the inside.
Yeah.
That looked creepy when I did that.
It did look really weird. Really weird.
But no, I think it's a really impressive stadium from an architectural standpoint. I think it's going to be
like
great.
To see people too. That's the other problem.
Yeah, well, that one and the giant Roomba, which I think they're calling the Death Star, by the way.
They are, yeah. Which apparently I'm not a Star Wars guy, but apparently it blows up in the end.
I wouldn't know either. But I'm surprised they kind of were okay with that. I mean, in the world we live in, I mean, you wouldn't want a Death Star.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But
But
so I wonder what this thing's going to be called.
no, the one nobody goes to.
Did you ever, as a kid, did you ever see the movie Flight of the Navigator?
Yeah, no.
No, all right, never mind. Totally ruins the reference.
Yeah, no.
Someone out there who watches this video, if you've seen Flight of the Navigator, please comment below. You'll understand what I'm talking about. With the shape of the overhang of this stadium, it looks like the spacecraft when it goes into hyper mode.
Okie dokie. On that note, we are going to move on to what we're actually here to talk about, which is the Los Angeles Rams. And Los Angeles Rams, 9-7 a year ago, third place in the NFC West. Looking at this, not many acquisitions, a whole hell of a lot of departures. So let's get into it.
Yeah, well, in terms of the acquisitions, Leonard Floyd, I think you could view him as I'd view him as an upgrade over Clay Matthews at this stage of Clay Matthews' career. I don't believe Clay Matthews was picked up anywhere. I mean, he's at the tail end of his career. Ashawn Robinson was brought in for defensive tackle depth. They had drafted a few guys who had not really worked out, so he's going to be a strength along the defensive line. In terms of the departures, I think some of to me the ones who really hurt from a long-term perspective, I would say obviously Todd Gurley. That one is just, I mean, the fact that he is no longer what he was because of this knee injury. And I know there's reports. Yeah, look, I know there's reports. Everyone in Atlanta is saying he's got a lot left in the tank. I don't know. I'm very skeptical, and it's a shame. I mean, he has an arthritic condition in his knee, and when his game fell off, the team just was not the same. And then Brandon Cooks, we talked about. There was a trade with Houston. I mean, I think that there's some issues there with the Rams regarding the receiving core. But the thing is, I don't think Brandon Cooks was overly reliable because of the injury history. I mean, he really did not do much last year. Dante Fowler, I don't think is worth the money that he gets. He's frankly just never. And look, he started out and he had that knee injury and OTAs his rookie year. I never thought he really blossomed into that guy. Corey Littleton, really, I think that's a big departure. I thought he was very good, very athletic, and an underrated linebacker. Nickel Roby-Coleman. Most Eagle fans are obviously familiar with that name now because he is going to come in and be the nickel cornerback for the Eagles. And also most Saints fans are aware of him. He's the one who blew up the Saints receiver in the NFC Championship game a few years ago and clearly had pass interference, but that was not called. That's still the worst no call in the history of the NFL, I think.
I'd have to go back, but in recent memory, yeah.
I mean, and then on top of it, the enormity of the situation.
Yeah, completely changes the game.
Yeah, Eric Weddle.
Saints are still bitching and complaining about it and crying about it.
If I was a Saint fan, I'd probably be bitching and complaining about it. So, I mean, I get it. They
bitch and complain about the Minnesota Miracle and all that stuff. They just need to get with it.
Well, I know that's no one's fault except their own. But this one, that was definitely, they got hosed. Eric Weddle, again, a good player, but sort of past his prime. They really they tried to go all in again last year, but they brought in a lot of aging players, and that's what I think you see here in terms of the departures. Greg Zuerlein, I was actually surprised about because granted the Rams also have some cap issues, but I thought he was one of the better kickers in the league. And so in terms of the COVID opt-out, Chandler Brewer was supposed to provide some depth along the offensive line. It's not slated to be a starter or anything, so that their COVID opt-outs did not hurt them as much as some other teams.
We're going to get into it when we get into our 4 questions for the Rams, but let's talk about it. You mentioned it, Todd Gurley. It really is a shame to see what happened there. Did the coaching staff run him into the ground, or was this just a bet? This was just something that was going to happen regardless?
I think it was just going to happen regardless. I mean, Also, if you think about it, if they had run him into the ground, they would have used him more in the playoffs,
Yeah, they
in their
could have.
playoff run towards the Super Bowl. But I think it's clear he just was not the same guy. This is just something that was going to happen. I think, particularly with an arthritic condition, I think you just. I mean, look, we unfortunately in life and in our careers, we all sort of have our own timetable, and because of the arthritic condition for him, it just was sped up with respect to his career.
Yeah. I always liked him as a running back.
Uh,
Still do. I hope we'll
Look,
get to it when we get to
maybe
the Falcons.
maybe he has a bounce back year. Maybe the rest. I don't know. We'll see.
Let's get to the draft, the Rams draft. No first round pick. Let's run through it. What was your take on this bad boy?
I thought some decent picks. I didn't hate the draft. It was nothing I fell in love with. You know, it's just kind of. I wouldn't call it ho hum. That to me, ho hum has more of a negative implication. So it's like two steps up from ho hum, whatever that means. Uh, Cam Akers, I think, is a nice pick. I think he really could end up being the guy in terms of the running back group. Van Jefferson from Florida. So his father was a longtime Charger, Sean Jefferson, and scouts referred to him as the best, other than Jerry Jeudy, the best route runner in the class. I think he's still a little limited physically, and he's very, very slight of build. He needs to put on some weight. So I think it might help offset the loss of Brandon Cooks. Terrell Lewis is a very talented linebacker. It could be an edge rusher as well. Terrell Burgess from Utah. I really like the entire Utah secondary from this past season. A lot of them were drafted. Bryce Hopkins, the son of Brad Hopkins, the longtime offensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans. Limited athletically, but I think a good football player. He's definitely going to be a solid like second or third tight end for them. Jordan Fuller from Old Tappan and Ohio State was a Rutgers target, just like his brother was, though we didn't get either of them. I think actually for a 6th-round pick, I think he was pretty solid. He was a team leader in Ohio State. Not the fastest, but always seems to be in the right place, which helps make up for it. So again, I think he got some depth. Cam Akers and Van Jefferson are really going to be expected to, they're kind of expected to take the place of Todd Gurley and Brandon Cooks in their own, or contribute enough so that the losses of Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley are not felt as much. So decent draft.
Let's move on to the 4 burning questions for the Los Angeles Rams in 2020, because I'm excited for this because I have a lot of thoughts on the Rams and their situation. Question number 1: how has the expectation and respect level for this team fallen so fast?
Well, it really has. You think this team was?
We talk off the cliff.
Yeah,
it's gone right off the cliff. They were the darling dandy, and then we know where they ended up.
So I think there's a few reasons. I think go back to the Super Bowl. McVay was outcoached badly. They didn't score They didn't score a touchdown.
I don't believe so. No,
they didn't score a touchdown.
Was it 17-3?
Yeah,
something like that.
I know. So it was a bad look. That, particularly for an offensive guru. The offensive line is not quite as good as it was this past year. They let go of Roger Saffold, and I think that really hurt them. So the offensive line wasn't as good. So you had
13-3.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So you had an ailing Todd Gurley. The other running backs they just weren't the same. And also there was more pass rush, and Jared Goff is not an elusive quarterback. So it just disrupted the entire timing of the offense. It's very much a timing kind of offense. And people also worry that McVay, not that he's a one-trick pony.
He's a one-trick pony.
Well, no, but that he doesn't have the ability to adapt the way, and that's why I think a lot of people now view Kyle Shanahan as actually the more promising coach because of the ability to adapt the variations. McVay kind of has his shtick, and Belichick and those guys figured it out, but it took
That's right.
but it took a really special effort to figure it out too. It's not just like any team came off the street and were able to shut the Rams down.
I know that a team that shut the Rams down the year before. So,
well, I don't know. Okay, in the year, well, no, okay.
So leading
Both
up to Super Bowl
years,
52, the Rams were the hot team. The Eagles and the Rams met on that Sunday where Carson Wentz got hurt, which changed the dynamic of that game. But the Eagles, it was clear early on.
It was a high-scoring game, though.
It was a high-scoring game, but it was clear early on that Jim Schwartz's defense, that they figured them out. And they couldn't stop them. That was a whole separate issue.
And the year after, you guys beat them in LA, too.
Right.
Yeah.
It was clear early on that certain guys figured it out. And you knew, at least I thought, once they got to the Super Bowl and you gave Belichick 2 weeks, that was all she wrote.
Yeah. Well,
that's going to parlay into our next question here. Will the real Jared Goff please stand up? There was a lot of talk of Jared Goff being that he was the quarterback of that draft. You know, he's the number one pick. He's better than Carson Wentz. I say without McVay in his ear, literally in his ear, talking to him before the clock shuts off the earpiece.
Yeah,
he is an okay quarterback.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Although, you know what? I don't know if you've seen the second episode of Hard Knocks. He's winning off the field. Let's just put it that way.
Well, yeah, I'm sure.
Two thumbs up. Wait till you see that. But look, I was a Carson Wentz fan in terms of those two going back to it. And I actually think most people thought Wentz was the better prospect. And we're kind of shocked that the Rams went with him.
I think
this is even before McVay.
Yeah, I think some of the bigger names, the Mayocks and all. Obviously, Mayock was right in the Wentz on the Wentz wagon. But when the draft occurred and it came down to 1 and 2, and you remember Jared Goff got off to that. He had a great year. Yeah. He had a great year, and then I thought last year it was really much. You saw what he was, which was a mediocre NFL quarterback.
Yeah, look, I think once there was no threat of a running game. I mean, he literally went from having one of the best running backs to defenses saying, "Okay, I don't even care if they run the ball." So he was never facing an 8-man box. Prior to with Gurley, you had to restrict.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think if they're able to recoup some of that, I don't think Cam Akers is going to come in and suddenly the running game will be of the same ilk that it was with Todd Gurley, but at least get halfway there. That'll help open it up, improved offensive line play, have 3 legitimate, viable wide receivers, healthy wide receivers. I think he could be at least better than what he was last year. Fair. So like a top 12 quarterback.
Okay. Well, we can get to that further on the big show.
Yeah.
If you're an opposing coach, where does this defense scare you? Because I got to tell you, the defense used to be really, really, really scary.
Yeah, it used to be nasty. Look, the obvious answer to me is the guy right in the middle, number 99. And when you watch the way he conducts himself on Hard Knocks, this guy is the best defensive player in the league. And as a former player, as someone who just loves the game, I truly just love watching what this guy does. And he's unique because there hasn't been a defensive tackle like him physically. His build, he's little.
He's not. You look at him and it's like, that's not a deep tackle. It's like an end. He looks like an end. He does. He looks like a defensive end, maybe.
He looks like a chubby. Well, okay. First off, if you see him without his shirt, he's not chubby. But with his jersey on, he looks like an overweight defensive end.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's he doesn't look like the prototypical D tackle.
Yeah, and yet he's managed to not only figure it out, but become, I believe, the most dominant force along the defensive line. I think he is the best defensive tackle in this generation. I think he's better than Warren Sapp.
Wow.
Yeah, he's better than Warren Sapp.
Wow, that's going to be the daily poll when on Twitter at GL Stan Show for this here episode.
He's better. Think about it. He's also doing it without the other pieces that Warren Sapp had.
I would agree there.
He is a and I've taken the opportunity to literally just look at him on tape throughout an entire season. This guy is first of the motor is nonstop, but the physical gifts, technically, he's just sort of devised his own way of getting through and around and over people, and he's just and he's got that nasty. So to me, the defense scares you there. The defense scares you, and then also you have Jalen Ramsey. But aside from that, it's not a defense that is going to really put a ton of fear into the hearts of offensive coordinators the way it once did.
That is true. Let's talk about it. We always kind of relate this back to it. We're Rutgers guys. We admit that. Where does Sebastian Joseph-Day fit into this into the defense?
To his credit, he's carved out a nice career in the NFL.
He really has.
Yeah.
He has.
And I think it was kind of tough at Rutgers to sort of see or truly appreciate it because he really came during the downfall of the Kyle Flood era and then the beginning of Chris Ash. But, he continued to get bigger and bigger. He's a physical guy. He's an athletic 300-pounder. And he also, I think, fell into the perfect situation because he has a tremendous relationship with Aaron Donald. And Aaron Donald, as we just alluded to, is such a tactician and his technical abilities. And he's constantly coaching up his teammates. And Sebastian Joseph-Day has taken advantage of that. And it looks like he's even fending off Ashawn Robinson for the starting. They're lined up more on a shade, but it's not the traditional nose tackle position, but he's more of a one technique. It looks like he's going to be starting along the D line with him and Michael Brockers. And he's done a nice job. You look at his stats last year when he really got a chance to play. I mean, he's not, and look, most nose tackles are not known to be pass rushing threats, but he is very stout against the run, and he's a good penetrator. So, he's a guy I'm looking forward to when his rookie deal is up, to see. I think he's going to be able to command a decent contract for a second contract, and that's life-changing money. And I'm really – and this was a guy who back in the Rutgers community was known as a really great kid. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I am incredibly happy for him and wish him nothing but the best. And I think, he's a solid player. I hate to use Madden ratings. This is a guy who deserves to be like, somewhere in that 78 to 82 range for defensive tackle. He's going to make some money, and I'm really happy about that.
Absolutely. We're going to give you our prediction on the LA Rams, just like we are on every other team, at the end of our 32 for 32 NFL preview series for our big prediction show. So we're not going to give that to you right now. If you'd like this here program, subscribe, drop a thumbs up, drop a comment, keep it right, keep it clean. We don't deal well with trolls, racists, bigots, anything like that. We will shut you down. It's okay. That's how we do it. Follow us on social media at GL Stan Show. I'm Mike. That's Brett. Tomorrow, I can't wait for this one. We are talking Seattle Seahawks, and I get to shit all over Pete Carroll. Until then, see you later.